Hello and welcome back to Courtside. I'm Andrew Cohen, alongside Sam Posman, Mike Randall. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Yeah.
Got a special guest. Hank, the Cowboys fan, is here with us today. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So we're going to do the NFC Offseason Preview, but we also want to start with all the breaking news going down this week. I don't know, Russell Wilson first?
Yeah, I mean, the NFL's done its best NBA impersonation this week, so it's basically another deadline episode on top of our NFC stuff.
Sam?
Yeah. I mean, it's two things here. One is I don't think they got their guy. I think
Who didn't get their guy?
Denver.
Okay.
I think they wanted Aaron Rodgers. As soon as it breaks that Rodgers signed the contract, they just throw Seattle the exact same package they were going to send to Green Bay.
Okay.
That's my theory.
That's your theory.
That's my theory.
That's one thing. What's two?
Two is I think it's pretty clear that like in the NBA, after the Kawhi Leonard Toronto situation, the whole thing shifted to, okay, now you just need to build a team to win in a 2-year window. In football now, ever since what the Rams did, where they just traded away their future to win now, I think other teams are going to try that. But it's like if you have a buddy, he's getting up there in age, he's maybe been divorced a few times, and he's like, screw it, I'm going to go to South America for the summer. Goes to Bolivia, finds a nice Bolivian gal, smoking hot, they get married, he comes back, and he has a bunch of kids, gets a promotion at work, everything works out. You're like, okay, things aren't going well for me. I'm going to try the same thing. Hop on the next plane down to South America. You're at a bar next to some nice Bolivian lady. Turn your head, she pops something in your drink. Next thing you know, you're halfway across the world going to freaking steal rubies for the crown prince of Tibet. Like, sometimes it just doesn't work out for you, and you try the same thing.
This is the analogy. That's all we've got.
I don't know.
So that essay you have due tomorrow.
So is that your really roundabout way of saying you don't think Denver's going to get out of this what they thought they were?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know if I want to try to follow it up. I agree they probably wanted Rodgers first, but I also heard that this deal was being discussed up to 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I think they were either doing both or they kind of had an idea Rodgers wasn't going to work out. I think right now, not even right now, I think it's a home run for Denver. You can say what you want about whether or not they get a Super Bowl out of it, whether or not Wilson is as great as some of the media hype him up to be, but Denver needed a quarterback. They have a good roster. That's not really debatable. And they got the best one available on the market. Rodgers didn't turn out to be there, so they get the best one available. They give up 2 firsts, 2 seconds, but that's including this year's draft. Mm-hmm. So you move past this draft. You basically draft Russell Wilson this year. You give up your whole draft to do that, right? So you're basically giving up next year's draft capital. Give up Locke, who is just not an asset at all. He's a liability. No. Give up Shelby Harris and Noah Fant, who are good players, but they're not going to move the needle in terms of contention. So for Denver, I think it was a home run. And then Seattle.
Blowing it up.
They're blowing it up. And I will never understand organizations choosing a head coach over a quarterback, especially when the head coach is 70 years old and has never won without said quarterback. But I think it's a disaster for them. I think they go in the toilet of that division for a while. And I think Denver is probably I think they're pretty firmly probably going to be a playoff team this year. But whether or not they win a Super Bowl or not, I think they made the best move they could at the right time. So it's a win for Denver.
I don't think they took Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson.
I think, Wilson wanted input on roster decisions, right? And they didn't want to give him that, despite the roster being really not good for
dog water.
Several years now.
There was that, and I just think their relationship had soured to a point where one had to go. And if you move on, it might not have been Russell might have not walked in and said, "Hey, you got to pick me or Pete," but I think if they move on from Carroll and get him a young offensive-minded guy, he's probably more willing to stick it out with Seattle than if what happens.
I think also I wonder if he wanted maybe just a front office overhaul, and they weren't going to do that. Yep. Right? That's a lot to do. I mean, but still, I mean, you have Russell Wilson, and now you don't. And sure, you still have the front office guys, but like you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
So,
Hank, what do you think?
I don't know. I think if the goal is to win a Super Bowl, man, I couldn't see a path for the Seahawks to win it with Russell at this point in time. I just think there are too many holes in that roster. Even though they've got weapons, to have all three of their weapons available at the same time, for DK Metcalf to be healthy, Lockett to be healthy, Carson to be healthy, and go on a run, I just think it was super unlikely. And the powerhouses there in the NFC West are here to stay for a little bit. So I'm not sure that they would have made it the distance. And I think they got out of it what they could. But I look at all these late quarterback moves, and everyone's scrambling to find veterans. And when you're looking at the big picture, I just think this is a reflection of the draft that you have coming up. I just think there's such low confidence in the QBs in this upcoming draft that everyone's scrambling to find the best option. And if you can get Carson Wentz for a few third-rounders and pull the trigger, because you don't know what else you've got coming. So, but honestly, I don't know how loosey-goosey I would be with these draft picks, especially these first-rounders, because there's some promising guys coming up next year, some quarterbacks. And if you've got a shot to get a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud, I think you hold on to some of those first-rounders.
That's fair, and I think the dearth of quarterbacks in this year's draft will end up being a theme in this one, just because so many teams in the NFC are going to be looking for it. And we're about to talk about the Wentz move here in a second, but Hank, I'm with you. I think there's a reason why teams are moving to get veterans. I think with Wilson, I don't think it would matter if you had Trevor Lawrence coming up in this draft class. I think you got an established potential Hall of Famer, although I'm willing to have that debate. People seem to think it's in stone, but I like the move for Denver. Regardless of whether it pans out with the Super Bowl or not, it gets them back in the conversation.
Yeah, that's true. And that division is loaded. And so the only way they're going to – I mean, they had a nice season this year considering they didn't really have much at quarterback, right? I mean, Bridgewater was there, but he also got hurt. They had to go Drew Lock. So making a move like that, all of a sudden they're right in the conversation for – I mean, I don't know if they're going to win the division, but they at least have a chance now.
They're in it. They're in it.
So
that is the most talented quarterback division potentially ever. I mean, you have you probably have 4 top 10 guys, and I slot Carr in at the back end of the top 10, but you have the best quarterback in the league. You have another probably top 5 guy in Herbert, and then Wilson. I think no one's putting him, even with whatever gripes you may have with how he's been the last couple of years, especially late in the season.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's slotting him in lower than 7, if not maybe top 5.
I think those 4 quarterbacks rival the Danny Dimes, Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, and Ben DiNucci year.
Oh, the NFC East. We'll get to it. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
So, the Carson Wentz wagon, did you really? Okay, talk about the Carson Wentz wagon trade now.
I wish him all the best.
Washington gave up too much.
Washington did give up too much. See, here, I have something to say about that. I don't understand how teams are just, willing to throw away, and I love Carson Wentz to death, but throw away 2 third-round picks. For Wentz, when Seattle can't get anything for Bobby Wagner, Dallas can't get anything for Amari Cooper, and I know those guys are on insane contracts, but so is Wentz, and they threw in those picks to pay him. It's not like Indianapolis is paying any of his salary. I don't understand how that happens. Moving past that though, I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wonder what goes into the minds of these coaches, if they think they can turn Wentz back into a superstar. Everyone wants to get hands on certain quarterbacks because they think they can turn them around again. Mm-hmm. And I just think your fate's inevitable with that dude.
He was in the perfect situation to succeed this past year, right? Mm-hmm. He was in Indianapolis with a great running game, great O-line, great defense, a really good offensive coach, a coach that coached him before and believed in him. And he's still, at the end of the year, just crumbled, and they missed the playoffs. And so now you almost look at it and say, he kind of is done, right? It feels that way because if you're in the best situation, you don't succeed, and you go to another one that's not nearly as good. What else are we supposed to expect?
I'm going to push back on that. I don't think he crumbled. I think that whole team crumbled. He was, 27-7 this past year? That's nothing to sneeze at. The fumbles were bad, and the decision-making wasn't great towards the end. But I don't think you can give up on a quarterback after 1 year. He didn't do anything. If you compare him to what the Eagles replaced him with in Jalen Hurts, the Eagles they're not just going to give up on Jalen Hurts after this year because it wasn't fantastic.
Contract. Carson Wentz gets paid a lot of money to be very mediocre at best at football.
He does get paid a lot of money, but like you said, he's in a great situation. So if you give him time, I think he can prosper there.
I also think they may have looked at it and just said, this is a great situation for any quarterback. We may as well try another guy that we think could be better and pay him a lot less to do it.
I don't know what's on the market. What are they going to do? Bring in Jimmy G?
Going after
They're
Jimmy G?
going after Jimmy G.
Jimmy G's had playoff success.
I would rather have Jimmy G.
I'd rather have Jimmy G.
So I actually don't hate the Wentz trade for Washington. I don't love it. I don't think Wentz is good. I think you guys have kind of said it all. The one thing about him is there's at least talent and there's at least some upside. And like you said, he did go 27-7. So the Colts were in position to be the 1 seed at one point.
Yeah.
Or not the 1 sead, but they were
charging up.
They were charging up and they beat New England when New England was the 1 seed at that point. So I don't like I said, I don't love it. I also don't think it's a long-term move. Once you get past it, I'm with you guys, or with whoever's mentioning the draft pick stuff. It is a couple third-round picks. They're valuable picks, sure, but they're in a really, really crappy division, right? So they needed something at quarterback that was a little bit more stable, and I think Hank mentioned it earlier, and like I said, it's going to be a theme. There's not much else out there. At least he's talented and has some upside. You're going to have to deal with some mind-numbingly dumb mistakes, but he has proven at points to be able to lift poor rosters. He did it in Philly for a couple of years when he snuck them into the playoffs, right? So it's not a home run deal, but I at least understand the thinking behind it, that you bring him in, you give him a year, you give the upside a year. You weren't going to do any better, right? You can't complain like, oh, man, we got Wentz, we blew our chance to get so-and-so. You're not doing better. So you bring him in, you give him a year. I'd have to look at the deal.
He has an out after. You have an out after this year.
I was going to say, I'd assume based on how they structured the deal, that there's an out after this year. Bad quarterback draft class. You bring in Wentz. You see what can happen. What happens in a crappy division. He is the second best quarterback in that division, right? I mean, I'm not taking Jalen Hurts over him. Daniel Dimes is a disaster. We'll get to him, but I think you do it for a year. You see what happens. Again, you basically drafted Carson Wentz in the 3rd round this year, and you give up a 3rd-round pick next year. You'll probably get a comp pick. Yeah, comp pick anyway. So I get it. I don't love it, but do it for a year. If it doesn't work, you do it, and you didn't dump him.
Sometimes you gotta hit a fly ball to advance a base runner.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah.
Now, Cowboys fan Hank, how do you feel about Carson Wentz being back in the division?
Oh, I love it. When I received the news, I was in the middle of evolution class, and I audibly rejoiced at the news. No, he's a personal favorite of mine. I'm not scared at all about the football, the Commanders Football Club. No, it's really exciting, and I think as much as I love Rivera, they run the most boring offense over there, and it's so fun to. And they're always good for 2 blowouts a year, and that's. Anytime you can get that back in the division, I'm all for it.
Hank just annihilated my Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. One other big quarterback story this week. Rodgers. I could not believe it.
Really?
The 4-year contract just kind of out of nowhere.
Okay.
It was the 4 years.
It's the 4 years for me.
Are we sure that was a contract? Because McAfee was making all that noise about
Rodgers also tweeted like those weren't the terms.
Yeah.
He tweeted that wasn't the money.
That wasn't the money.
He's definitely coming back. So let's just.
Yeah.
He's coming back.
We don't know the terms of the deal yet, but we do know he's back. So he's back in Green Bay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a player option after 1 year.
Maybe,
my reasoning for that is because remember when Devonta Adams said, "I will follow wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, and if he's here for 3 years, he'll be here for 3 years." They franchise tagged him.
Yeah.
Which means that they don't have confidence that Rodgers is going to be here for longer than a year.
No, that means they couldn't work out a long-term deal by the deadline. They now have extra time.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
I don't know if Green Bay would have done that. They wouldn't have done that contract if it was a player option after 1 year, because he's just going to opt out, and you're going to have to go through the same thing next year, and you just gave him a pay raise, right? Just give him a pay raise if that's what it is, right?
He's held them in the league hostage for 2 off seasons in a row. I think this was the off season, and you never know with him, but I think this is the one where he makes the decision. He either is all in on Green Bay, and he probably finishes his career there. There's talk about moving Jordan Love, right? So he's not. He's going to be there for a long enough term that they're getting rid of the potential replacement. And Denver's now out of the picture, right? So I think he ends up sticking on for a few years, and I think they end up getting Adams back. We can talk about him later when we actually get to the Packers as a team. But I don't even really feel like talking about it. I think it's just annoying. He just acted like a diva and just ended up staying. And it's like, Aaron, no one cares. Yeah. You didn't win the Super Bowl last year, dude. Like, no one, you're not holding the league in your hands. I love that he got
upstaged by Russell Wilson. That was my favorite part of all of it. Yeah. He thought it was going to be about him, and then Russ trotted
got upstaged by Carson Wentz, too.
He did.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. One of my biggest problems with the way he acts is just the team has had no playoff success since, 2010, when they last won the Super Bowl. Like, they keep losing the NFC title game. They lost in the divisional to Jimmy G again. At home.
Since they went to the Super Bowl and won it, we'll give him that decade ago, whatever. He has played exactly one regular season's worth of playoff football, and he has a losing record.
Yep.
That would be like if the Lakers never got LeBron and then acted like they were still relevant.
Which they did.
They did.
They did. They absolutely did that.
They tried. It was really funny, too.
Like, every star would be like, oh, of course he wants to come to L.A. And it's like, no, Paul George goes to Oklahoma City and resigns.
LaMarcus Aldridge never even gave him a meeting?
Yep. Yeah. Nope. All right. Yeah, I want to move on from Rodgers. Calvin Ridley. Let's do Mike Williams real quick.
All right.
Because I think Calvin Ridley's a little bit of a longer discussion.
Yep.
So, Mike Williams, I think it was 3 years, $60 million.
That is malarkey.
$28 million is in the first year.
Here's my theory about that. They should have just let him walk and then bring in Amari Cooper for the same money, and then you have Amari Cooper.
Okay.
Like, he's going to want a long deal.
Like, make me a GM.
Also, no. So the thing with Mike Williams
Patrick Mahomes good. I believe that was your exact quote.
Kyler Murray's top 5 quarterback.
The thing with the Williams deal is the Chargers have $42 million in cap this year, so they're doing fine with that. The structuring of 28 of it in the first year is important here because it means it drastically lessens the cap hit the next 2 years when they're going to need more space. And I think he brings an important thing to the offense. He's a deep threat. He's physical. He's a go-get-the-ball guy. Is he up and down, hot and cold? Yeah, but when you're not reliant on him to be the number one most productive guy in the passing game, which is Keenan Allen, who's very consistently going to get his 8 to 10, 12 targets and 7 to 9 catches or whatever, the wild card of Williams adds an element to the offense that is important in today's NFL, especially with a guy like Herbert who can get the ball to him at any point.
That's fair.
Also, if you try to go for Amari Cooper, there's no guarantee you get him. He's new to the system, all that stuff. He's never played with Justin Herbert.
And he kind of fills the niche that Allen already has.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Just as many injuries, too. So you get all of it.
All right. Calvin Ridley. What a story.
It's so stupid.
So,
I bet on fantasy football. I don't get banned from fantasy football.
What? Yeah.
What?
No, you're saying
but no one drafts Sam Posman to their fantasy team. Unfortunately for you.
It's just one of the most brutal lack of judgment moments I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad dude. I think he was going through whatever he went through last season with the mental health. You can't really speak to that. But, I mean, Shannon Sharp said on Undisputed, the man bet $1,500 to lose $11 million. It's got to be the worst gambling odds in the history of anything.
It just doesn't make there's no reason to do it.
I mean, I don't want to speculate on him, but he, as Mike alluded to, he was going through the whole mental health thing. You wonder if maybe there's a moment of weakness there where he just goes out and does something stupid. I mean, I don't think $1,500 is nothing for someone who makes a lot of money like that, right? If he was really going all in on a scheme, I think he would put in a lot more money. But
I think it was more likely just a lapse of judgment.
Yeah.
He just did something stupid, bet a little bit of money on a team, and it's going to cost him a lot of money.
Yeah.
I wonder how often it happens without the NFL knowing, Just for people who are smarter and don't use an actual platform to do it. It's you got to and I think this is a clear example of the NFL just making an example out of them just because with these betting platforms becoming so popular, it's going to happen whether or not they wanted to or they find out about it. So this is their opportunity, to nail it, dude.
I think that's a really good point because betting is now legalized in a lot of the country and it's going to keep increasing. That this is the first kind of public gambling scandal we've had with a player in the NFL, at least since I've been watching the league, and it definitely gambling's come on the scene. So, Hank, I think you're right. It's an opportunity for the league to say, hey, this was $1,500 and this guy's going to lose a year's worth of contract value.
Yeah. So,
ball's in your court, players. If you want to gamble with that, you can. But
see what you did there.
Yeah.
But we're going to come down hard if we need to.
All right. Should we move on to our NFC Offseason Preview?
Yeah.
I think so.
What team do we want to do first? Well, we'll save the Cowboys for last in the NFC East. We'll start with Washington. We already talked about Wentz, but
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, Hank kind of covered it. Like, they're just kind of boring. Chase Young's going to kill Wentz in the first week of practice, and then all of a sudden it's going to be the Taylor Heineke year all over again. Now, McLaurin is, I mean, I feel like him and Carson are kind of made for each other in an ironic sense, in the way that he's really good at just going up and grabbing 50-50 balls. Carson Wentz only throws 50-50 balls. But that's mostly because he doesn't mean to. So I think this could be a good year for him, but I don't know. They're just there. They're going to be the Washington football team.
I'm kind of down on Ron Rivera. I don't know why. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on him, but he had, even when you take the time frame when Chase Young was healthy, that defense was very promising.
Mm-hmm.
Just came off of a pretty good year. They had some pieces on offense. Gibson coming off of a stellar year. I don't know. He doesn't impress me that much.
Yeah. No, I think he's a good coach. I don't think
Solid.
I don't think he's great. Like, he deserves to be one of the 32 coaches in the NFL, obviously. But I agree. The defense was very underwhelming this year.
Seems like he's one of those guys that everyone just loves.
Yeah.
So
great story. Everything going on. Yeah, and he's definitely revitalized that culture. But in terms of innovation going on over there, I see none of it. So. Yeah.
I think Washington has a puncher's chance in the East.
I don't hate that.
Would you say?
I don't hate it. Yeah.
I think Washington has a puncher's chance in the East.
At winning the East?
At winning the East.
Oh, Lord.
Look, will something probably have to go wrong in Dallas? Yeah, I'm not picking them over. But when I say puncher's chance, say what you will about Rivera. I think he's a good coach. He's definitely more of a culture guy than being an innovative mind for sure. But I think he's the best coach in that division. I'd rather have him than McCarthy. And think about the coaches in that division, right? He's the best coach in that division. That's something. That's not nothing, especially in the league. They probably have the best defensive front.
Think he's better than Sirianni?
Yeah, Sirianni's got a lot more.
Press conferences aside and flower references aside.
No, still.
I don't know.
Sirianni,
it was a decent first year.
Yeah, Sirianni had a good.
It's just 1 year though. Rivera's been a coach for a decade now.
So, at least for the sake of this argument, we're going to go, I think Rivera is the best coach in that division.
Yeah.
Then,
Dable?
Going to be the best coach in that division. We'll get to it, though.
Let's quickly follow the three.
They have the coach. I think when Chase Young's back, they're going to have the best defensive front in that
Philly?
division, especially with...
It's got to be Philly.
What?
I think Philly's got the best defensive front.
Dude, they're all old or
leaving.
Yeah,
Washington's up and coming.
They got the 2 Alabama DTs, they got Sweat, and they got Young. I think they certainly have the best defensive front in that division.
Cowboys will bring some guys back.
But they're going to lose Lawrence. They just cut Lawrence. Or they're going to at the league New Year. So Lawrence is going to be out. So I think they have the best defensive front, the best coach. We just did the Wentz thing. I won't get into it again. I think he gives them a puncher's chance just because there's upside and there's a chance to pull some stuff out of his ass when he needs to. Here or there. Is he going to kill him here or there too? Yeah, probably. But I think there's enough there on the roster in a really, really weak division with a good coach that he, I think, can at least keep them from crumbling if, say, Dallas gets a couple injuries, New York and Philly go off the rails. You never really know. I think they have a chance. I don't think they're irrelevant. I think their longer term plan, and I like it. This is the one I would do. Is you start structuring a good roster, just a generally deep, well balanced roster, which I think they in general have a decent one. Mm-hmm. And you just get in quarterbacks that can hold down the fort for a year until you get the opportunity to bring in the young guy you want to build around. Mm-hmm. It's not in this year's class. So you bring in Wentz. You say, all right, Carson, we're giving you a year. Get us as far as you can. If we like it, maybe we'll give you another tryout. If they don't like it, they could potentially have the opportunity to draft one next year or go after a different guy with whatever moves are going on. But the years, you don't reach for a quarterback if you don't need to, I don't think. So I think with this trade, they now pass on drafting a guy at 11. You can strengthen whatever aspect. They're still kind of in the draft the best player available, but I think they have a puncher's chance in the division, and I think longer term they're building around the idea of bringing in a younger guy and sliding him into a good roster the way we've seen some teams do recently and have some success with.
Yeah, no, I think they're the second best team in the division.
Yeah,
so
I would today say that.
I had the Eagles. I don't know.
I'd put Philly over.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's
I think it's definitely an argument. Yeah.
I think they've figured out a formula to make it work.
We'll go to the Eagles next.
Let's do Philly.
I think if you looked at the schedule that they ran the table against the end last year, it was really just not there were no good teams on that really. That's how they got into the playoffs, is they got hot at the end against some bad teams. So to me, they still have to prove it, right? And Hurts he's okay. I think they should be looking at other options potentially to bring in. Maybe not this offseason, but certainly has to be on their radar. I don't know. I think they're okay. I think at best they get back to 9-7, or 9-8 now. I think they're around 500.
I do too.
They're a very "are we sure this guy is a good" team.
Yeah.
Head coach down, GM down, owner down.
Owner I don't love.
Yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
Don't love Jeff. But I don't know. Jalen Hurts has a very high ceiling in terms of a play-by-play. Can the next 8 seconds go well?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it just feels like he just turns off his brain and he'll just throw 3 incompletions in a row.
Yeah. And
it's really weird because he feels like one of those guys that has the potential to just not be stopped. And it's you're so talented. Why are you not doing more than you are?
Yeah.
I think the defense is really good. The linebacking core is not. But I feel like Fletcher Cox and what's his name, who's coming off, and Brandon Graham, who's coming off an Achilles.
He's 34.
Yeah.
And he just signed a 1-year deal last year to put him through this season.
Yeah.
But that might be it for him. So definitely aging there. Derek Barnett is walking at the end of this season.
He's a free agent.
They
have some cap room, but
they probably will let him walk.
Yeah.
He peaked in the Super Bowl, and it's just been downhill since.
All right, yeah.
They've got the 15, 16, and 19.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's where I was going to go to.
They're one of the worst drafting teams in the league, probably.
Yeah.
But you got to hit on a couple of those. So, yeah, I don't know. Get a good wide receiver. It's a deep wide receiver draft. Get a good O-lineman, deep O-lineman draft.
It's a shame that there's no good quarterback because they could really just have their choice. That's a very good
they could, because if there was a quarterback at the top of the draft they really wanted, they could just package those picks.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Send them all to Jacksonville who just needs players.
Right.
Yeah.
They could absolutely do that, but there's no quarterback. I'm assuming that they. You never know. You never know with
the closer we get to the draft, the more teams will fake fall in love.
Yeah,
with
it happens every year. Zach Wilson's a classic example from last year, but.
So I think draft-wise, I'll speak to that because I think you guys kind of covered it with the roster. It's a tricky spot. It's a good spot, right? You have plenty of capital, but if you're not drafting a quarterback, which I don't think any of us expect them to, I would not stand pat and draft 3 guys in the middle of the first round in this draft class. Now, if you get to your first pick, which is 16 or whatever, I think if you have, first off, you sniff around anyone in the late teens, 20s, some of those better teams that might be looking for a heir apparent, or maybe Pittsburgh's trying to come up to get Pickett, who's trying to get up for quarterback. So you kick the table on trading back on any of those picks because you're not going to trade back on all of them. And then I feel like we say it every year, they got to just keep shooting at wideout, I think, until they get it. There's some decent ones. I don't think Drake London may or may not drop that far. You have the 2 Ohio State guys. Olave just ran a 4.26, which really I think boosts his stock because silky smooth route runner, but the knock was, is he over the top NFL fast? Clearly is. Yeah. Garrett Wilson. So I think either Ohio State guys. You got the Alabama dudes, even though they're both hurt.
Sky Moore.
So So there's, like you said, there's decent wideouts. I would not reach for one. I don't love anyone in this class, but if there's one there they like, go ahead, shoot your shot. But definitely kick the tires on trading back, potentially trade back, and accumulate capital for next year, especially if you think you might have a quarterback decision coming up. But the Giants did this a few years ago with the Beckham trade where they stood pat and they drafted like Dexter Lawrence at like 17, which he's a good player, but he's not a needle mover. So I would just say for Philly, with those 3 draft picks, don't be like, oh, nice, we get to add 3 impact guys. You're probably not. You're probably missing on 1. More than likely, you're probably missing on 2 of them. Be creative. Try to move around. If you like a prospect, maybe they fall in love with a Derek Stingley or a Sauce Gardner early and want to go get Darius Slay, a running partner, jump up and draft him, right? Like, be creative with those picks. Be aggressive with those picks. Don't just stand pat and accept getting 3 decent starters, because this is not a draft to find a stud at 16 or 17.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, and then we can move on. Darius Slay does not get the love he deserved this past season. Like, he was probably one of the best defensive backs in the league in 2021. And, like, all of, like, the defensive metrics point that way. And just no one gave him any love, which I don't really understand.
Did you get torched by Metcalf this past year or the year before?
Year before.
That was brutal.
Don't worry. Comes back.
All right. Let's move on to the Giants. One pending free agent, Evan Ingram.
Yes,
Giants legend. I saw a report there are like other teams that are interested in him to move him to wideout. That's already a sign that he's not very good, but hey. The big one is obviously quarterback for them. There was a rumor about Trubisky wanting to bring him in. I think that's how I would do it if I were them, is bring in some competition for Daniel Jones and then just try to find a bridge guy for this year, maybe 2 years if you need it. But they're not going to draft a quarterback this year, I wouldn't imagine, even with the 5th pick. I guess you never know, but I don't know. Mike, you're the Giants guy. Any thoughts?
So, yeah, I have plenty of thoughts about the Giants. This could get very cynical fast, but I won't let it. I think the roster's a mess. You're the worst team in the division. I will say, I love the hires. They had one of their best hiring off seasons, I think, in a long time. They've been a really big disaster in that area recently with the head coach moves. I like Dable. Now give him time. I like Cohen, right? I think both coming from Buffalo, stable organization, history of drafting well, history of developing guys, right? So I agree with the decision to keep on Daniel Jones. I think it's kind of like what we were talking about. Like, whether or not he's the guy, start building a roster around him. If he turns out that you like what you see, you can add some more years to this. You got franchise tags. You can potentially extend him if you need to. He's not going to demand big money. But build a roster around him. I ultimately don't think he ends up being the guy, so I think you end up needing to draft a guy. But I don't think this is the year we go all in on trying to upgrade quarterback in a major way, because I don't think it's available. So I really like the Trubisky idea. Andrew, you just mentioned it. I think you bring him in. He can push Daniel in terms of competition. If Daniel Jones goes down, there was a stretch last year, kind of early midseason, where Jones was picking it up a little bit. He was playing decent football, and then he got hurt, and the offense just went to one of the worst I think we've ever seen. So Trubisky at least stops you from doing that. He gives you a little bit of competition, and we've talked about him, I think, on the last episode. I think he's going to be a decent option for a lot of these teams for a bridge quarterback. In the draft, it's all going to be about the draft for the Giants at this point, right? You're a rebuilding team. That's where you got to start. They have the 5th and the 7th pick because they got the 7th pick from Chicago. I think you go some combination of defense. I think you just go defensive line, offensive line here. There's the tackle from NC State. I'm not going to try to grab his name because it's...
Icky?
Yeah.
He's my pitcher on the baseball team was his roommate in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
That's sick.
He was the defensive end, and Icky was the tackle, and he'd go at him every day.
Icky Ekwonu?
He's sick.
He's a stud. So potentially grab him at 5. He may slip to 7. Tyler Lindenbaum from Iowa is another potential pick. He's kind of in the Quentin Nelson mold of plug and play in the interior line, and you just have a guy there for a long time.
Old Connor Williams action.
Not Connor Williams action. I think Thibodeau, I don't think Hutchinson gets that far, but Thibodeau could. The edge rusher from Purdue could potentially get that far. There's a little bit talk about Javon Walker from Georgia. I think the Giants haven't had an elite defensive end edge rusher in a long time. I think you have the opportunity to, I don't know that any of these guys are elite, but I think you have the opportunity to grab a good, solid 8 to 12 sack per season guy, plug him in, get another offensive lineman. I think you have Andrew Thomas, so if you want to go attack right tackle, go ahead. If you feel that the need is interior, go with Linderbaum. Just draft good, decent prospects. They don't need to be flashy. I think it's all talked a little bit about it with Jacksonville last episode. There's no need for flash. There's no need for big seismic moves right now, right? You think you have the right people in place at the top. Trust that. Start building a good roster. Evaluate your quarterback with an improved roster. If you don't like him, then move on and plug a rookie into a better situation next year or the year after.
Because as much as I love watching the Giants blow top 10 picks, I mean,
they love it, dude.
They brought in guys who have a good eye for talent. I mean, you talk about Dable, Martindale over at the Ravens has been drafting guys late in the draft for years, and every time he drafts some dude at 26, because usually they're in the playoffs, not this year, but not this year.
No, not this year.
Like, he drafts guys at 26 who should have been top 5 picks, and nobody knew about it. Like, so he'll hit that out of the park. They'll go offense, defense, and get some good players.
I think they've done an outstanding job of acquiring a more modern, progressive front office with Cohen. They're starting to go towards analytics a little bit. Gettleman was the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. And then I think Dable was a home run hire at OC, and he's done a really good job filling out his staff. Like you said, Martindale has a history of developing later pick talents into viable players.
Where do you think they stack? Like, what would be a successful season for them next year?
That is really tricky. It depends on what you think of Daniel Jones. I don't know if I want to see him make a jump because I don't think he has the ceiling. But I think a successful season next year is
5-12.
So I'm not going to disagree that 5-12 is a successful season. I think it depends on how it looks a little bit. That's really demoralizing to say because in the NFL, that's just not how it's supposed to operate. You're supposed to be able to turn around pretty quick. I think you need to see that you hit on these draft picks. You want to jump out of Jones, even if it's not for him long term, to see that your program and that your coaching staff and that your roster is improving, that the situation is improving to an extent that you can elevate the play of your quarterback. That's really, really important. And then I think the biggest thing is going to be we got to get a jump from the offensive line. Even if it doesn't necessarily translate into high win totals this year, there needs to be improvement. Saquon Barkley needs to have some running lanes. You got to keep people off Jones a little bit. If they do all that, maybe 5-12. If they lose a lot of those close games, maybe they could jump up into the 7-win range. It is the NFL, right? Teams can flip it around quickly despite how dire things have been. So I think it's one more year of progress. Then potentially Dable and Cohen get their guy at quarterback in the room, or they decide to really roll with Jones, and then the next season or two you have to start pushing for a playoff berth. But I think next season you need to see that you've hit on your guys and that you're going in the right direction.
I think we need to see a 1,000-yard rushing season, Saquon, if they hold on to him.
I would not pay him. Next thing I actually wanted to bring this up now is, what do you guys think about trading him?
I mean, I don't know what
strongly
you get
consider it.
For him, but yeah,
strongly consider it.
So
that would be like the one. If you're not going to get anything from him, you may as well. I mean, he's a talented player still. You may as well keep him. But if you can get anything from him,
he was so fun to watch at Penn State.
I mean, I don't like. I don't like paying running backs.
I would not pay him. I've heard that potentially the asking price right now is around a 4th-round pick. For that, I keep him.
Yep.
Right, he is a talented player. Hopefully, just for the human being, hopefully he stays healthy. Right, like we just want to see him healthy. If he is healthy, that's a huge boost to an offense that potentially could get a little more creative and a little bit better, more well run this year. And then if he plays well this year, I hate to say it, you start the tagging process. You tag him all the way through, and then you let him walk when he's probably broken down and cooked. As harsh as that is, I don't think a long-term extension for Barkley, unless his number comes significantly lower, closer to maybe what Derrick Henry signed for. Do you consider signing him back?
Yeah.
Hank, what are your thoughts on the Cowboys?
Here we go.
Oh, the Cowboys?
Perennially disappointing Dallas Cowboys.
Hey, listen. I mean, not a huge fan of the spot we're in terms of the cap. Not going to lie to you. And we're 1 year away from getting Sean Payton, so I know this is going to be a down
What?
year.
You don't like Mike McCarthy?
Not the biggest
You don't like
fan.
QB draws
Not
at the end of
fan.
playoff games when you have no timeouts?
No. But in my opinion, Jerry had no choice but to cut Cooper. I mean, that was unavoidable. If that allows you to keep some of these guys, I hear they're pretty much close to a deal with Gallup, and they'll bring back Gregory. They even get back Curse and Cedric Wilson. I mean, you can't do anything about that. So I like the goal of bringing back the defense. That was your one successful unit last year. Offense stunk. Hopefully find some sort of winning formula there. I think Kellen Moore's a fraud. I wish he got hired so we could bring in somebody else. But yeah, as you know, as passionate as I am, I don't have much to say at this point. They'll crush the draft as they always do. Lower pick this year, but they'll find some depth and probably start rebuilding that offensive line for when Tyron Smith leaves town. And I mean, the interesting thing will be to see who else they restructured contract wise. I mean, they've already done Zach Martin and Dak.
How do you feel about Zeke?
Oh my gosh! I mean, that's just the most painful thing ever. But yeah, we have to deal with that, and hopefully, I don't know. Pollard's up next year, so we got one more year of him. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot. They'll win the division. That's not even a question. I have no
do you feel
fear
like
at all.
them winning the division is more just by default because the rest of the division isn't good? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they're in a worse. They'll be worse than this year, I think. They're just losing some key guys, and I think they were pretty well off injury-wise this year. They had some guys on the COVID list. That'll be interesting, by the way, to not really have a COVID list next year.
Novel concept.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't see how they can beat this year's record, but they'll win the NFC East. I'm not even
First round exit.
I mean, potentially. I'm not even gonna to lie to you guys.
Probably.
No, but I have faith.
Yeah.
So
I have faith.
you're a dejected Cowboys fan, but luckily you're in the same division as Washington, Philly, and
Exactly.
Giants.
My favorite starting quarterback, Carson Wentz.
All right. Why don't we move on to the NFC North? Let's just get the Lions out of the way. I don't know. They're the Lions. They have a million holes.
Oh, I love the Lions. I
Love
think
the
they're gonna
Lions.
have a huge
Like,
resurgence.
Enormous.
Big
I love
Dan
them too,
Campbell
but
guy.
look, what do they do this offseason, though? Like they have the second pick, right? So
We'll see.
They brought back.
Free agency hasn't started, right?
Yeah.
Like, draft hasn't happened.
They just brought back a receiver. Who did they just bring back? Lions just brought back a big
Was
receiver.
it St. Brown?
no, but he's a
No,
rookie.
he's
I don't
He
think
was-
Yeah, I was going to say.
Monroe St. Brown.
He,
Stuff
he,
a legend.
he hit it off. This
I mean, the
Josh
Lions.
Reynolds. They brought
Oh,
back
Josh Reynolds.
Reynolds? Yeah.
The whole
Whatever.
St. Brown family are just menaces. Have you heard about this?
No.
One's
Dad
on the
was
Packers.
Dad was Mr. Universe in the 80s. Named all three of his sons after Egyptian gods. Equanimous played at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I knew that.
And now he's at Green Bay. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like, mom was some sort of freak athlete, too. Like, literally Mr. Universe for, like, multiple years running.
That's
It's-
hilarious.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Like, imagine being cool enough to name your kids after gods and just, like, get away with it.
Don't give me any ideas, Sam. I think I kind of just went over the base of a rebuilding project with New York. So it's going to be a similar process for them, right? Build your roster around the quarterback. Keep him around because he can hold the fort down. I don't think Goff is awful. And then eventually we're heading towards them drafting a guy. It can't be this year. Not with the second overall pick. There's no quarterback you can take that high. So
is there any chance they fall in love with somebody? I don't know.
is there a chance? There's always a chance in the NFL because talent evaluators are unbelievably bad at their jobs.
So.
But it would be a big time mistake. I think Campbell had them headed in the right direction in the sense of they played hard for him. They hung around, right? They played a lot of good teams, a lot tighter than they should have. I think you draft Aiden Hutchinson at number 2 and you forget about your defensive end spot for a while.
Yeah.
That's important in a passing league. So, again, you guys said it. There's not a ton to talk about. Just draft well, hit on your picks, hope you get headed in the right direction. Other than that,
If there's anything less that we want to talk about, we can talk about the Vikings.
yeah,
The Vikings.
There's nothing to talk about the Vikings.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Bears.
I mean, before we move on, I think the Lions are a really good candidate to trade down in this draft.
I would.
Yeah,
I think I would
I would.
100% let somebody bite on that bait and just collect a crap ton of picks, fill a bunch of holes,
I like
set
that.
yourself up for the future when you can draft a quarterback and then you're ready to roll.
That's a really good move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't. If Aiden Hutchinson is the next T.J. Watt, then shame on me. But I just don't think he's.
I don't
If you're
think
not,
so. I don't
if you're
think
not
you
in
should.
love,
I
if you're
don't
not,
think so.
especially if you're the Lions, if you're not in love with them, you trade back.
Yeah, I
Easy.
think that's 100%.
If you're rebuilding and it's not either a quarterback you love or a generational talent at another position, you
Yeah.
trade back.
Yep.
Yeah.
if somehow Evan Neal, and he's not going to be there, like if the Jaguars messed it up.
There's talk because they just franchised Cam Robinson.
Yeah.
So there's now rumors that potentially Hutchinson goes 1 and Neal comes back. So there you go. Now you get a left tackle instead of an edge rusher. It's the same deal.
Nasty offensive line.
Just pick one.
Yeah.
The Vikings, we can jump over. They got Kevin O'Connell, new head coach. Potentially the offensive mind in there helps a little bit.
Not Kevin O'Connor.
Nope.
The ringer.
They're headed to another 7-9, 9 or what is it? 8-9, 9 season.
I think didn't they say that Kirk Cousins had like significant input on the coaching hiring process?
Probably.
I thought that was interesting.
Like I don't know.
I'm high on the Vikings.
They're committed to. I don't know. They're committed to mediocrity at this point.
Hopefully they didn't give up their shot. Did it? Just Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I got it.
Nice.
Really clever.
Thanks. Hey, Carson Wentz isn't either. I still love him.
All right. I think the Bears are more interesting.
I agree. So, they brought in the defensive coordinator of the Colts last year. Brought him in to be the head coach. They have a young quarterback who was not able to. Well, he didn't play well last year, and Matt Nagy was just a disaster after his first year. I wonder if that's the right move, bringing in a defensive head coach.
It's so stupid.
I hate it.
Because say what you want about whether or not it works. What it says to your starlet quarterback is we don't think you're worth bringing in an offensive guy to make a better player out of. And I just think that's a bad message to send. Like, just confidence-wise, I don't think you do it. Hell, even at least Urban Meyer sent a good message to Trevor Lawrence. Say what you want about everything that he did was wrong from that point on, but at least it sent a message to their young quarterback that they're investing in that guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Bears don't have their first-round pick. It's the Giants.
Nope.
On there. They have a decent amount of cap room, but like Allen Robinson's gone.
He's out of there.
He's done.
Unless they tag him, which they won't.
No.
I'm excited for him. I hope he finds a good landing spot and finishes his career. Could have been a potential Hall of Famer.
He could find himself in the Alshon Jeffrey Chicago to Philly pipeline.
No, I think he could find himself in New England. I think he could. Patriots are apparently they've done work on him. The past few
be
days.
the second wideout in Kansas City.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
That's DeMarcus Robinson.
Oh, no, don't even. I don't like the defensive head coach thing either. You look at the Final Four in the NFL this year, all 4, I think, were offensive guys. Mm-hmm. Most of the young quarterbacks, if not all of the young quarterbacks that have succeeded recently, offensive head coaches. So it doesn't make any sense to me. I think he was a good candidate. I don't want to act like he can't coach. Hopefully he comes in and kind of shifts the culture around if he makes good hires at OC. Mm-hmm. The problem with me with hiring defensive guys, especially if you're to pair them with a young quarterback and you want this relationship to last, is everything comes down to who you hire at offensive coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. But if you hit on offensive coordinator, and we're about to see if this has any impact in Buffalo, if you hit on OC, that OC is there for 2, 3, maybe 4 years. Now he's got a job.
Yep.
Now you're bringing in a new guy, and your 24-year-old quarterback who's just hitting his stride has to learn a new offense. Let's say that guy hits. He's gone in 4 years. Now your guy's 28, right? Maybe he's getting more expensive. They just lose a wideout, couple less weapons, new offense, right? Mm-hmm. If you have an offensive head coach that instills a scheme and then brings in an understudy or two to work with it, those guys leave. The head coach and the scheme are still there. And the head coach and the quarterback are joined at the hip, as opposed to there being a little bit of a divide there. Mm-hmm. So just for continuity, and then it's an offensive league now, and we kind of have to just be ready to admit that. Yeah. Defense is incredibly important once you're on the field late in the season, but the overall progression points towards teams led by offenses are going farther. So I don't think it makes any sense. But
if all the rules are put in place to benefit one side of the ball, why would you not invest in that?
Yep.
And also, so what? They had an offensive coach last however long, 4 years Nagy was there. Okay. Defense was always good. Defense was really good early on, right? So, and got Fangio hired in Denver, right? But I don't know. easily go up. Like, especially because Fields wasn't good last year.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't think it's on him totally at all. But if you look at, you just invested a high first round pick in the guy. He doesn't look that good. And the thing you said kind of alludes to what you were saying before, but like, first thing he says, well, got to improve the defense.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know.
He's gonna have no weapons at his disposal
yeah.
next year. I think they might finish last in the division.
I think
And I think the learning curve with Fields is steeper than they thought.
Yeah.
And sophomore year.
I think you're going to see a lot of just scrambling.
He's closer to Trey Lance than Mac Jones.
I think Trey Lance is a step ahead of him. I think.
Wow.
In my opinion.
Trey Lance got
at least had a year.
whole year to sit and it's the same system. It's a good system.
Great
Very
offensive
good system.
coach.
Yeah.
Right. We want to talk about hiring an offensive guy for your young quarterback.
Yeah.
That's the best you're going to do.
Yeah. So all right. We went to the Packers. Got Rodgers back. Franchised Adams. What are your thoughts on them? Because they before Rodgers. Now, if you told me Rodgers was going to sign for 4 years, I wouldn't have said this. But when I thought it was like one more year of Rodgers or he leaves, I said I would consider just letting him go. Like, you try to trade him, get something for him, and just try to start building it up again, because the ceiling with him for now going on a dozen years is just maybe you get to the NFC title game and lose. But now that he's there for 4 years, that's the right thing to do. Now it's about building around him again.
He's the perfect villain.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that's the ceiling. I think the ceiling is a Super Bowl victory. I just think they've fallen short.
That I would agree
I mean,
with that.
yeah.
That's the ceiling for sure.
Just the talent's there. It's
Yeah.
I mean, he just put his tail between his legs last playoffs.
Not just last playoffs. Also the year before, the time before that too. Time before that as well.
So at the beginning of the offseason, they were $45 million in the red cap-wise. They've restructured some deals.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to cut some people. I think Ladarius Smith is as good as gone, which legitimately hurts that defense. But it's by far the best roster with the best quarterback in that division. So we're probably headed towards another 12, 13 win-ish season, another high seed, right? As long as he's there, say what you will about how deep he can get them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're going to be in position to contend. So he's the best quarterback in the conference by a significant margin.
Yep.
So they're going to be there at the end of the season. Now, whether or not they live up to the moment, we don't know. He could freaking lose to Daniel Jones sneaking as a wild card, right? Like, that's been his MO recently. But I don't think once we dealt with the Rodgers drama, now it's how do they handle the cap. I think they manage it fine. The cap's not real for good teams. So
Yep.
they'll be fine. They'll be there at the end of the season like they always are.
How many years in a row has Rodgers had a bye first round of the playoffs? Because I'm a big believer.
I want to say 3.
I think that screws up your like momentum going into the playoffs. I really do. I want to see them avoid getting a bye.
And they're more likely to do it now with just one team.
I don't know. Something about the bye.
Can we retire the momentum doesn't exist in football take?
Who made that take?
It just pops up every once in a while on Twitter or something, and it's
That's
ludicrous.
misinformation.
So that's fine. I disagree, Hank, with you with the bye. If you look at the last 20 years of NFL, the vast majority of the teams representing their conference in the Super Bowl
Yeah, that's true.
had a bye.
Yeah,
so it
and
matters.
that's just statistics because you'll have a higher
And
likelihood.
they're the best
of getting-
team in the regular
Right.
season.
For certain teams like the Packers, I just wonder, and they're always a little banged up towards the end of the year. So in that regard, it is a good thing to have. But
If you don't handle it right, I agree. It can be a problem. That has a lot to do with coaching, how you rest guys at the end of the year.
right.
Because remember he had the 15-1 year. The year after they won the Super Bowl, they get the bye. They rest everybody. They rest everyone in the last game of the season, and they get the bye. And Eli Manning comes in and storms them out of Lambeau. So
Yeah.
you might be right on a case basis here with Rodgers and how that team reacts. Peyton Manning famously had a lot of issues with first round byes early in his career, but general sense, it's an important thing to get. It's benefited Kansas City a lot recently.
Yeah.
Benefited Tom Brady lived off first round byes.
I think an interesting thing with the Packers is what do you think they do with Jordan Love?
They got to move him.
Does he have any value right now? I mean,
He does to a team.
It's the Jimmy G situation, New England. Except
No, but
without
no. See, the Jimmy G situation in New England was Jimmy G played 4 games.
Well, that's what I was going
got
to say.
hurt, yeah.
Without the proven success.
Yeah. Right, it's just he was drafted in the first round. That's
There will
what it
be
is.
teams that are looking for quarterbacks younger teams, rebuilding teams that will shoot their shot with a 3rd or 4th round pick on a Jordan Love because he's talented.
I mean, he's essentially a draft prospect.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
You're basically drafting him in the 3rd round.
Is he the best quarterback in this draft?
That's a hell of a question. Because him and Malik Willis, had a similar profile coming out, right?
Small school.
He's been under Rodgers and LaFleur for 2 years, so that's nothing to sneeze at in terms of he has gotten some development. So, would I rather take a waiver on Jordan Love with a 3rd round pick, or draft Malik Willis a little high in the 1st? Better value with Jordan Love. So we'll see. It is an interesting thing for teams that are looking for a quarterback.
I gotta get out of here pretty quickly. You want to talk about the NFC South, and then we can take a break?
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right, NFC South. Got the Falcons.
And
They're committed to Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
For some reason.
I met his mom once in a sandwich shop in Falmouth.
That might be the most interesting thing we could talk about with the Falcons.
Yeah.
I was wearing a Boston College shirt. She told me her son went there, and I was like, I know.
Wait, Matt Ryan's mom owns a sandwich shop up here?
She lives on the road next to the sandwich shop. It's the rich person road.
So
Falmouth.
Matt Ryan is going to the Patriots?
No, well, the Celtics signed Matt Ryan.
Okay.
Just a different
Oh,
Matt Ryan.
yeah.
Matt Ryan.
I just think the Falcons are so uninteresting because they're just locked in, right? They're going to stick with Matt Ryan, and that's it.
Mr. Belichick would not approve. They're going years too late.
No, you got to be ahead on that position.
By far the most interesting thing to talk about with Atlanta is if Cordell Patterson can replicate his fantasy football success for next year.
That was intense. I loved
It
it.
was huge.
I loved it.
Yeah, but you know someone's going to draft him like the 3rd round this year, and he's just going to go back to being Cordell Patterson.
Yeah.
Here's a spicy take. Atlanta wins the division.
Ooh.
That division is not very good.
You got
Tampa's going to get a stopgap in there and win the division.
Tampa. They love Trask.
But I
think they're going to give Trask a shot, and I think that's a
here's
massive
the thing with
Local
Tampa
boy.
though, right?
Yeah.
Who's the Jameis Winston a couple years now he threw like 30 however many interceptions, right?
I maintain that the 30 for 30 Jameis Winston season was the most exciting football I've ever watched.
Agreed.
Because you did not know what was going to happen on any given play.
But he was probably going to be points either way.
Exactly.
But so that team was I think 7-9.
Yep.
Right. So let's say you get a decent stopgap in there and they go to 8-9, 9-8. Like,
Saints,
are they winning?
you're saying?
Are they what?
You're talking about the Saints?
No, I'm
or
talking about the Bucks. Right? Are they winning the division by default? I don't know.
With
Like
which quarterback?
Hey,
just any
Panthers
random
won it in
stop guy,
7-9.
right?
I don't.
I don't know. I think this division's really weak.
I think
it's horrible.
It's horrible.
It feels wrong without Brady.
It does.
Of course it does.
I think if the Falcons hit on their 8th pick, like
They're the best quarterback in the division.
Yep, they
By
do.
far.
maybe best running back. No, come on.
Kamara.
I forgot that. Come on. And McCaffrey.
McCaffrey
That's a bad
for
take.
now.
But
Do they have the best receiving target?
yes.
Pitts.
Dude, this would be.
I mean,
this is the wrong year for Ridley.
I'm-
to
What
go
I was
out
going to
there.
say is it's ironic because they
Yeah.
did Ridley last year,
Yeah.
but they might actually want him this year, and he's
I
gone.
wonder if they go receiver at 8 or something. Just because this is the year.
You could trade back
This
receiver.
is not the year to grab
No,
the
you
wideout
could
that high.
trade back. You
I
could
think-
trade back go receiver.
Someone's
I mean,
going to reach on
but-
London probably, but it's not the year.
Jameson Williams is very solid.
I don't
I think it's just his health problem.
Falcons need receivers, and they dark horse team.
Dark horse.
Second year head coach.
I
They weren't god awful last year.
To snag a division win,
Just-
if
yeah,
it-
and this-
the rest
yeah.
of the division is awful, maybe.
Yeah.
I think
Stadium's beautiful.
that's great. Sam. We'll go to a soccer game there.
Oh my god, have you seen? It looks insane. It looks
okay.
gorgeous.
I think New Orleans is really interesting and really messy and potentially really bad, potentially pretty good. I think they got to figure out quarterback. I think you try to talk Jameis into coming back.
Hey, you can see now.
Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
now, and he played well before the season ended. I don't know if they retain their OC or not, so if they can keep some sort of
Leftwich? Oh no.
they can keep some sort of contingency going on with the offense. But it was Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen's now the head coach. That I think was a great decision. I think you bring him back, you keep some continuity with the team. He knows the Saints. He's a very, very good defensive mind. And hopefully the idea is that you persuade Sean Payton to come back in a year. So
That's not happening.
yeah. But I think they'll be decent. Now they're in some cap. I think they have some cap issues
Oh,
this
boy.
year. They're in it deep.
This is the year the cap thing becomes a reality.
Yeah. So you can keep pushing it back, but at some point it's...
So Teron Armstead, their left tackle, is a free agent. He's probably walking out the door. You potentially have to start looking into cutting some of your higher level defensive guys. So if the roster falls off and your quarterback's position is an issue, you're probably not going to be very good, especially without Sean Payton to lift it up. The only reason I hesitate to just wash him out of the division picture is A, because the division is so weak, and B, because it is a good roster. There's good players roster. On that roster.
Quarterback is a big question.
They beat Tom Brady and the Bucs with Trevor Siemian last year. So they know how to win very ugly, gritty, low-scoring games. And if you get away with a couple one-possession games here or there in that division, potentially you steal it.
I think a lot of those gritty wins against like the Bucs and stuff will disappear with Sean Payton being gone. I just think,
but they could also reappear with Brady being gone.
Oh well, I'm not talking about the Bucs, but just Sean Payton has a way of
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This is the Panthers.
Can we do Tampa first because they're kind of tied in with the Saints?
Yeah.
Again, really good roster. They tagged Godwin, so they do get him back. Unfortunately, he's going to miss a big chunk of the year with the ACL. I would go kick the tires on Jimmy G. I kick the tires on Mitchell Trubisky. I get that's not a
Does Teddy Bridgewater have a home right now?
Again, I was going to say Bridgewater. Any of these stopgap, decent veteran guys who are going to be able to hold the fort down.
Can we get Tyrod Taylor a job?
Yeah, honestly. Tyrod Taylor. Guys who are not going to shoot you in the foot. They might not elevate you to wins. We talked about that tractor.
What's Nick Foles doing right now?
I'm just chilling in Chicago.
I don't think... Oh, no, he's in Chicago.
Just getting paid to sit on the bench.
Anyone that can just hold it down, try to steer the roster in the right direction. Hopefully Arians and that coaching staff have a good year doing what they do. I know you're not a big Arians guy, Andrew.
No, I'm not.
The rest of the staff is pretty decent.
It is.
The roster's really good. I don't think they're in a huge amount of trouble in terms of what they're going to lose. They might lose JPP there. But they bring back the vast majority. They lost Marpet on the O-line, which isn't great. But I think that roster is significantly better than any other in the division. So if you bring in a quarterback that can get just kind of eke you to 10 wins, you win that division. So I would pick Tampa because I think they're functional enough to go grab a functioning quarterback, and Arians can get enough out of him. But we've been talking about it. I think everyone but the Panthers is in play in this division, depending on how the offseason shakes out, which is what makes it interesting and not interesting because none of them are Super Bowl contenders. But
yeah,
all right.
Panthers are looking up. I hate the trade CMC stuff.
I was gonna ask, do you trade CMC?
No, you don't trade CMC.
I think you do the exact same thing you do with Barkley. I don't think you pay him. I think you kick the tires on it. If you don't like it, you bring him back and you start tagging him.
Because I know there's been injuries, but it's not great. I think Matt Rule is definitely
hot seat and then some.
I think
he's out potentially midway through the year.
I think
I'm partial as a Baylor fan.
I love him.
He actually went to my high school too, but I don't understand the fire rule stuff. Like, what quarterbacks have you given that guy?
I think it's one. I mean, I don't know.
McCaffrey hurt as much as
it's one thing to look at the quarterbacks that they've had and be like, okay, they shouldn't be good, but they've been terrible. I don't know.
Didn't he push to get Darnold too?
Yeah, pushed to get Darnold. Darnold didn't work out. Yeah, Bridgewater didn't work out.
He should be the GM, but
Cam was a.
I mean, the Cam thing was just
they tried.
They were done. They had no other. They were pretty much cooked, and they're like, hey, we can bring back a fan favorite, get some guys in the stands, but like.
I mean, they finished. Was McCaffrey hurt most of this year?
Yep.
Finished 5-12 with McCaffrey hurt, and you got Sam Darnold, and Cam Newton, who was horrible. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't put the blame on Rule yet.
I don't think it's totally on him, but I don't think he's been good.
He had some bad staffing.
He's had
So, the thing to think about with Carolina, I would not do it, but they're at 6. We talk about teams talking themselves into quarterbacks. The teams that love to talk themselves into quarterbacks are teams with head coaches or GMs on the hot seat. Because you bring in the young guy, and he can save your job, or you're out anyway, right? Nagy just kind of did it, although I think anyone would have drafted Fields in that position. But if anyone, I think, looking here at the top 10, it sounds like Atlanta's going to stick with Ryan for one more year, which I agree with. Washington just traded for someone at 11. I think there's potential there that Rule talks whoever it is into a quarterback at 6 and then just bets on his ability to make that guy pan out and potentially save his job. If he can't, he can't. But it's those guys that are on the brink that tend to reach most in the NFL to save their jobs. So I think Carolina is on QB watch at 6.
I think you're 100% right, Mike, and I think Rule's got Willis written all over him. I think big arm, very mobile. Mm-hmm. I think he would be a really good fit for the Panthers. A little bit of an elevated P.J. Walker. Rule liked similar guys at Baylor. I think that would be a very good pick for them. And I mean, you also would go with Pickett there. I think he's more of a game manager than Willis. I think Willis has a much higher ceiling than Pickett. But
I don't like Pickett for the rebuilding team at all.
Oh no, I hate it. But so many of the teams that you can see Pickett fitting in have lower picks than they need to get him. Like I could see Pickett maybe doing well in the Steelers or the Bucks or something. But yeah, I think Willis is the guy for the Panthers, and I hope they get away with him.
I hope David Tepper takes all the assets from the Panthers and transfers it to Charlotte FC. So.
Do you think the Giants take a flyer on Willis, Mike?
No. I legitimately think that they think of Jones as being better than the guys in this draft. They're going to give him a year, and they're going to see what happens.
All right, let's move on to the NFC West. I think the most interesting team right now is the Cardinals because Kyler Murray. His situation there has just been weird. He's been playing games, it feels like, all off season. I don't like Cliff Kingsbury. I never have. Sam.
I hate it. Hate it all. I was high on Kyler, and he broke my heart. I've never betted on an Oklahoma player again. We've got Texas Tech and Cliff Kingsbury. There's no faith. There's nothing good. J.J. Watt's great. It's a good story, but if he can't stay healthy, what's it to do?
He's not great, actually. Kind of
he's old.
Not very good anymore.
The only thing they have going for him is Jordan Hicks is their middle linebacker.
Oh, they cut him yesterday.
What? No way. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, they did.
Damn.
They got a good young safety core, so they got some guys.
I mean, they just melt down at the end of the year.
They have a good team. They're gonna win. They're gonna be in the playoff.
Kingsbury's got to be on the hot seat.
Have you
in my
seen
opinion.
Kingsbury's stats in the last 7 games of each of his seasons?
Yeah, listen, he's not a good coach.
atrocious.
He is not a good coach. Not good.
Can I tell the Kyler story?
You can tell the Kyler story. That's why I'm here. I was supposed to leave after last time, and Andrew was like, no, you have to wait so you can eat the Kyler story.
Yep.
So the whole thing behind Sam's little Kyler tantrum right there was he's a diehard Texas guy, so blood hatred for anything Oklahoma, including Kyler Murray. And then I walk into our living room during the season, and Sam is like almost giddy excited. He's like, Mike, I just watched Kyler Murray play for the first time. Like, really watched him. He's so good. It's just like whenever he's going to throw it, you just feel like the ball's going to find the receiver. And I'm like, yeah, Sam, like he's a pretty good quarterback, right? He's probably a top 10 guy. And he's like, no, like, I really think that he's one of the few guys I can really trust in the NFL. And he says all this, and I'm sitting there like, yeah, man, like he's pretty good. I'm not trying to like rain on the parade, right? Like he's finally like broken past the Oklahoma hatred. It was healing.
It was healing.
Almost immediately, their season just goes in the tank, and Kyler's terrible. They go through that wild card debacle, and now Kyler's throwing tantrums trying to get himself paid. So you guys will hear us mention some odd takes from Sam here or there, and that is by far one of our favorites. The old, I really trust him.
Love and trust him.
Love and trust him.
That was bad.
How good are the Cardinals next year, Sam?
They're terrible. They lost Jordan Hicks. They lost their best player. They have nothing to do.
Jordan Hicks went to Texas, by the way.
And he was at Philadelphia. It was a combination of great things.
I didn't realize that Sam was like this big Eagles fan until maybe a week ago. Oh, he just hid it from everyone.
I've just laid into it since then, sending gifts of the Philly special.
It's fantastic. Somebody tweeted out saying the baseball CBA was on the 2-yard line, and so I sent the Malcolm Butler interception. Same response with the Philly special.
I think the Cardinals' ceiling is snagging a wild card spot, nothing more.
Yeah, no, they're not better than the Rams, not better than the Niners.
No,
we'll see about the Seahawks. I don't know. The Seahawks have a huge coaching advantage.
Drew Lock.
Huge coaching advantage. Drew Lock.
I love Drew Lock.
Let's take a break.
All right, take a quick break. Say goodbye to Sam.
Goodbye, world.
Any quick kicker takes?
Ooh, this is good. I would take Matt Araiza in the first round.
Okay.
If you have a generational talent at any position, you know he's going to be all-pro for the next 15 years at a position that has the longest longevity of any position group in the NFL. If you're going to bust on a first-round pick, probably, might as well take him. Live for it for the next 15 years.
Hey, the last punter to go in the first round was the greatest punter of all time.
1 for 1. I like those odds.
All right.
Who was the last one?
Ray Guy. Al Davis drafted in the first round.
He's
of
the
the
only
70s.
Hall of Fame punter.
Love Al Davis.
All right. Thanks so much, Sam.
Peace, Sam.
Horns down.
See ya.
No.
All right, let's move on to the Super Bowl champ Rams. I feel like their future is just dependent on whether McVay and Aaron Donald come back. I think McVay's back. Donald probably, but you never really know. Trying to bring back Odell, although he's going to be hurt for a large portion of the season.
Yeah.
I think the question is, how much do you try to add to this team versus try to put it back together for another run?
I think that's the question. I think so. Their most prominent free agents are Vaughn and Odell. I don't think I'll have to pick between because I think they're both willing to kind of start ring chasing a little bit.
I also think the Odell thing where he's going to be hurt for most of the year limits his market. So
yep. So I think Odell, you probably get back. Vaughn, I think it sounds like will take a little more convincing. He's kind of kicking the tires on free agency. I would try hard to get him back.
Yeah.
Especially, I think Aaron Donald ends up coming back. I'm gonna go with that assumption for now.
I think so.
Hopefully, he doesn't retire. I'm of the mindset that you do what you can to improve your roster. I wouldn't make changes just to make changes, but Tampa Bay brought back a pretty dominant Super Bowl champ, player for the entire starting lineup, and didn't get out of the divisional.
Yeah.
Right. It is a hard thing to ask for an entire roster's worth of players for their bodies to hold up over 2 extended playoff runs. And teams seem to struggle when you just recycle the old champion. That's not an easy thing to do. So keep being LA. Keep being aggressive. Keep moving picks. Keep making moves if they're there. Now, don't overkill it. But you have the right foundation here, right? Make sure Aaron Donald comes back. But keep being aggressive. Try to improve the roster. Get some fresh blood in there. Some fresh, hungry guys in there. Don't stay stagnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing more on the Rams. I mean, sounds like Von Miller's thinking about maybe running it back with the Broncos, but I don't think that'll make or break their season.
No.
I think just gotta try to get everyone back.
I think their pass rush will be okay if they're able to get Aaron Donald back.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Niners. Jimmy G's probably gone. Trey Lance is taking over. What do we think they get for Jimmy G?
I'm going to guess a single second or potentially a third, maybe a third and a fourth.
I was thinking second. I could see a second that could get into a first depending on how much he plays. Kind of like the Carson Wentz thing with the Colts last year.
Potentially.
Because I think what you're going to start seeing is teams be a little desperate, right? So already I can name 3 teams off the top of my head that would love to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Bucks, Saints, Colts. Yeah. All would love to trade for him. All would be if the Bucks or Saints got him, they immediately become the division front runner. If the Colts get him, they're right back, right?
Yep. Pittsburgh.
Right? Pittsburgh. Yep.
Pittsburgh's a really good fit for him.
Right. So already, off the top of our heads, right? A bunch of teams that might want him. You just saw Wentz go for 2/3, and he's getting paid a lot of money. Right.
Jimmy G, I don't think has anything. It's either nothing's guaranteed or it's like
the guarantees are done in his deal. I think it's the last year.
Okay.
So, I think at least a second.
Yeah, I like how San Francisco handled it. You build the roster, keep a quarterback that can keep you guys heading in the right direction. Turns out you could win with them at a pretty high level. Couldn't get you over the hump, so you're rolling the dice. You got a young guy, unproven guy, has not played a lot of NFL football. But you give Kyle Shanahan a whole year to work with him. Now he gets an off season as the guy. No more splitting reps. They have a Super Bowl ceiling. We've seen quarterbacks pan out quickly with this. The NFC is not murderer's row. It is not the AFC, right? You can rip through this NFC conference right now. So we'll do bold predictions later, but I think Lance puts him in play if he hits, and I think he hits.
I think that's right. I think they have a really good ceiling in place. Kind of stinks that they don't have a draft pick this year because they're usually so good at drafting and filling immediate holes and just having guys come in and be starters on day one. Over the past 5 or 10 years, they've sort of depended on having those picks to fill holes. But no, I think they've got a really good system in place, and I think Lance shows a lot more promise than Fields. I think they snag a wild card spot. I'm not sure about Super Bowl potential. I think it's a little early.
I wonder the reaction if they don't do as well with Trey Lance as Jimmy G. And that's like not necessarily just wins and losses, but how it looks on the field, right? If there's not significant improvement, I don't know. I think that's because I think Shanahan's I think he's a really good coach. I think he's a really good offensive mind. Game management has been a question mark, even going back to his days as an OC with the Falcons. I thought
game management has cost two franchises Super Bowls. It's not just a question mark.
No, and the game they lost this year to the Rams, I thought he totally blew it. Right? Like, sure, Garoppolo wasn't good at the end of that game either. But the fourth down where they put Trent Williams in motion they did it multiple times in the playoffs.
What a joke.
Put Trent Williams in motion and run to the other side.
Yep.
Right?
What are you doing using your all-pro tackle as a gadget player?
If you're going to put him in motion, maybe run behind him.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's okay if teams know where you're going. It's still Trent Williams.
You only have to get a yard or two. So
he has a habit of being really creative and aggressive up until he gets tight. He gets really conservative, allows the team back in, and then kind of panics and is like, Jimmy G, just like go make a throw. And it's like,
that's not
his strength, and he's no longer in a position to do that.
Yeah,
because you're on your heels.
No, so they were made for each other.
They were. I think they end up being a really good team, though. With all that said, those are nitpick flaws for a really good coach. I think if Lance pans out, I think they end up being a pretty good team. Their running game is going to be incredibly dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. Debo is now added to the fold. Although I would hesitate to use him heavily early in the regular season. I would let that be a late season push playoff run thing. Yeah. But Trey Lance didn't look great as a passer. Looked pretty effective as a runner when he was there. Yeah. And they have a deep stable of backs. Him and Elijah Mitchell, man, with that creative running game and that O-line, they're going to cause
it always feels like they can get a running back. And I think that's just more like the running back position nowadays. But they always find, like, every year they have, like, 5 running back injuries. And they still have, like, just one guy every week. And that guy has a great game.
Yep.
It's consistent.
It's the most creative, dynamic running attack, schemed running attack in the league.
Yeah. All right. And last up, the Seahawks. It's the dark ages.
Yeah, this is going to be a rough one for any Seattle fans listening. You guys are out of a decade of relevance into probably an extended stay in the basement here.
Yeah.
I think they won that trade, and they're going to have a shot at a playoff spot.
This year?
Yep.
Who's the quarterback?
They need an explanation.
They got the 9th overall pick. They could go out and get somebody. They freed up a ton of cap space with moving Wilson. And I think they've got the offensive weapons. They just need to stay healthy. Their defense overperformed last year. Did not allow many touchdowns. I don't know. I love Drew Lock, but
who's the quarterback? Is it a rookie? Is it they find another veteran to bring in? Is it Drew Lock?
I think it could be a rookie. I think it could be a veteran. I think in either of those cases they'll have a shot at a wild card.
I just think they're in too tough of a division. It would be one thing if they're in the NFC South.
I mean, you don't know. I mean, we haven't really seen Lance play, so we don't know what the learning curve is.
No, but I mean the Rams are the Rams.
Yeah, no,
the Cardinals, as much as we just.
But I think when you look,
pooped all over them for a good 5 minutes, they're still going to be relevant.
Right. When you look at the grand scheme of things and think of how many wild card contenders there are in the NFC, I just think anyone has a shot because you have a lot of bad divisions.
I respect you going out and making that claim. I think that you're right. Most teams in the NFC have a wild card ability to make a run. I do not think Seattle's one of those teams. I think it's an incredibly flawed roster. No more great quarterback. Locke is a mess. Don't rely on that for anything. And this gets lost in the whole Seattle, the downfall of the dynasty. It's great to get draft picks. They are the worst drafting organization I've seen in a long time, right? I mean, they just have these bizarre reaches and misses, like Rashard Penny in the first round. Like, A, why are you taking a non-pass catching running back? B, why is it Rashard Penny? He has an injury history.
Yep.
I think the next year they reach on Jordan Brooks about a round too early, plays the same position as Bobby Wagner. So if you're going to break it down, go for the rebuild, and you don't have the ability to draft or at least have like consistent draft philosophy that is effective, those picks aren't worth as much to me. So I don't trust them to bring in a young guy to kickstart a rebuild and potentially run towards a wild card or anything, right? Like, now if you're right, hell of a take, obviously. Great, bold prediction. But I don't think they draft well enough. I think the roster is kind of a mess. Russ really kind of propped it up as much as he could. So I don't see the wild card thing happening.
All I'm saying is if use some of that cap space to bring in Trubisky, nail the 9 pick with maybe getting a stud corner, get them opposite to Diggs, and you got Adams in the backfield. He's not a safety; he's a linebacker. I don't know. I think that.
I don't know. You do that, you might have a 5-win team on your
Yeah, I was
hands.
gonna say, that doesn't sound like a wild card team
I think
to
the
me.
last wild card spot is perfectly in reach.
I will say there's probably gonna be like 2 teams in the playoffs in the NFC where you're like, come on.
Yeah, no, there's going
Come
to be.
on.
It probably is.
There will be 2.
I mean, this year we had the Eagles, right?
We're gonna have
And we
another-
just lost Tom Brady,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So
fair enough. I think the NFC is wide open for one of those teams that has everything break the right way. Cam's Panthers kind of had that one year. The Falcons had a year similar where guys stay healthy, certain players break out. A team like that could actually make a deep run in the NFC playoffs this year, I think, just because it doesn't feel like murderer's row. AFC, you don't have one of those top 4 quarterbacks. You're kind of drawing dead. The NFC is wide open. It makes it a little more difficult, I think, to forecast what the picture might look like going forward. I think it's not necessarily going to be a big, bold prediction, but if Trey Lance hits, I think San Francisco has as good a bid for the Super Bowl as any, and I think he's going to hit. So I think San Francisco, they get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, and they jump right back into the thick of the NFC playoff and Super Bowl picture.
Real quick, we've got breaking news out of the NFL. The Chicago Bears have traded Khalil Mack to the Los Angeles Chargers. Guys,
now,
that's a big deal.
God.
now I want to just.
Oh my God!
I wanna
we got
go-
a breaking news story on the show.
live on
Now,
the show.
okay, now I want to go back
Unreal.
to last week's episode where I said the Chargers were going to win the AFC West.
Oh wow!
I
Doubling
think-
down. Now, was I going to potentially pick the Bears to win the NFC North? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. There was no way I was going to do that. But, wow.
They were sending a 2022 second and a 2023 sixth for Khalil Mack.
That is
it.
Does
a
he have
bag
a-
of potato chips.
Does he have 1 year left or something?
I mean,
that's ridiculous.
Honestly,
I don't know.
he signed like a 6-year deal in
Yeah.
Chicago. I think it's at least 2.
Is this cap hit just like
It's
$90
huge,
million?
but we talked about it actually earlier on this episode. When we talked about Mike Williams. They had $40 million to play with, so
Yeah,
they can fit
they
him
have-
in. That is something.
so he's got, he's got 3 years left.
3 years left. What are
Now,
his cap hits?
so just under, so 17.75 this upcoming year, then 23 pretty much.
You're not paying Herbert those 2 years.
Nope,
so you
you're not.
get away
This
with
is
it.
what you
This
do
is
when you
what
have a rookie
do.
quarterback.
Yep.
I like that. Move
Wow,
a
I
lot.
love that for the
is
Chargers.
a hell of a move.
Breaking news on the program.
Doesn't matter.
Wish we had like a
Mahomes-
breaking news sounder.
Yeah.
Ticker.
Boom, this is breaking news. Yeah.
The the arms race in the AFC West is on.
The Chargers get their guy. I love that. I love when people tweet that out.
That is crazy.
New bold prediction. This isn't NFC related. Chargers are the first seed next year. The AFC. No, I'm kidding. I would love to say it, but their division's too good.
Nah.
Kansas City is still gonna take care of
I'm
business.
doubling down on them winning that division.
Bills.
Bills for the first seed.
I would go Bills for Bills
That's
for
fair.
one. Chiefs are still going to the Super Bowl. 'cause
I
they're
might
Superman.
I might go Titans for the first seed.
No.
I don't know. They did it this year.
I don't think it
almost.
happens again.
That was out.
The division.
I know why you're saying because of
Yeah,
the division,
division.
but
One of the best coaches.
that's a seismic.
That's a seismic shift.
That's a big move. Because that was already a talented defense that was lack. Oh my goodness.
Dude, Bosa. And
Bosa and
Bosa and Khalil
Mack.
Mack on the
Lord.
same D line.
What's their draft situation?
Oh my God. They didn't even give up their first
No,
round
they
pick.
give up the first round
17.
pick. They have mid.
They'll-
They still probably have some cap room to work with to fill in
They draft well.
fill in a
too.
couple holes. They draft well. Scary.
I like that.
The one thing that's proven to get after Mahomes and Burrow, pressure.
Yep.
They can
Well, okay, it's
provide
not
it.
totally on either of those guys necessarily. Although
No,
Yeah.
any quarterback.
any quarterback.
I'm saying
you
the
need it.
only thing we've seen that has really shaken either of those two,
Yep.
it's the only thing we've ever seen shake Brady, that's why the Giants beat him,
Yep.
right, is the ability to get pressure. You now have 2 absolute monsters on the edge in
Wow.
LA. That's a Rams-style move for the Chargers.
Yeah.
When you said Los
Except-
Angeles, I was almost like, did the Rams really do
It's a Rams
Yeah.
style move, but they're not giving up any first rounders. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
They're
a-
not, yeah.
not.
You basically just drafted Khalil Mack in the second round this
You
year.
just
Yep.
signed, and you signed him.
And
like,
you got him
you're
for
just
3
paying
years.
Yeah,
Yep.
him. Obviously, you pay him.
Wow.
big time. Well,
A lot more of these like dynasties are gonna age
Look
out.
at the NFL. Just
Yeah.
you said it before. Dude's best NBA impression.
It was kind of a dud of a.
Yeah.
Well, not really a dud of a deadline. It was a great deadline,
Yeah.
but
AFC is
NFL
ridiculous.
stepping it up.
Yeah.
But this goes to the point you were talking about where I think it was Sam, actually. Sam had the point that it's a copycat league, and the all-in win-now method has worked recently, and teams are now starting to do it. That's a screw the future. That's a we have our guy, we have our roster, let's do it now. That's a now move. That division is something else.
Brutal.
It's incredible.
It's hard to get the 1 seed in that division because you're gonna have to play all those.
You're gonna lose 2 or 3 games.
Honestly, it could be. You look at the end of the year, and all of those teams went 3-3 first the division. Yeah. Really, I think that's really likely.
Or poor Las Vegas just gets brutalized because every team is like, this is our one chance.
No, it's like they're coming off like back-to-back weeks. They played the Chargers, like the Broncos just played the Chargers and the Chiefs back-to-back, and they roll into Vegas and like just light work.
Yeah,
light work.
But I think they're in the crapper.
That's
finish off our hot takes.
I mean, I don't really have a.
Come on, Andrew, you got one.
All right, let's. Here you go. Jimmy G to the Saints. Saints end up in the NFC title game.
Wow.
There you go.
What do you mean you don't have a hot take?
I just came up with that right now.
Hot take and a half.
Because that team's really, the roster's really good. Now, the one thing I will say is there's more of a the Sean Payton, Jimmy G connection. Both went to Eastern Illinois. There would have been something there.
That would have been something.
I think they had been interested in him in the past. I think they were interested in him last offseason.
I feel you guys both had real hot takes. I feel a little queasy about doing this, but I think it can count now where we're at. The Packers break through this year because Aaron Rodgers plays well in an NFC title game, and they go to the Super Bowl.
That's bold.
They go to the Super Bowl. He's going to get over the hump.
Get steamrolled by Mac Jones and the Patriots. Wow.
Oh my God!
I think there's one thing standing in the way, which is really my final hot take: that the Cowboys
don't do it. Don't
are winning the Super Bowl.
They
will find a way.
Now, this is a better take than Mike saying the Lakers are about to turn it around 2 weeks ago, and then they went on to lose every single game except for the one where LeBron dropped 56.
I was literally making the take, and halfway through I realized, I was like, oh no, there's no real way this goes right.
I mean, I want to say you cursed them, but they've been so bad.
They deserve it. Yeah. They're so bad. We're not
getting into this. This is for another day.
Is it the courtside curse? Is that?
I don't know. The best one I ever had was because a few years ago, Lamar's rookie year, it was like week 10. Yeah. I predicted on this very podcast that they were going to win the division because I looked at the Steelers' the schedule. They had the Saints there, the Patriots, they had the Cowboys. I'm like, Steelers are going to fall off. Ravens are rolling with Lamar. Hey, look what happened.
How about Washington wins the NFC East?
I feel like Hank already kind of made that one. But, hey, you had him coming to second.
I will leave the podcast. I'll stop breaking news.
Yeah, that's true. One episode with Hank. One breaking news.
Maybe I'm the research guy.
I've been hoping for breaking news on the show.
Yeah.
That's sick.
There you go.
I just checked ESPN on the way out. I'm like,
huge.
Maybe there's like some little thing I can read.
Boom. Wow. Boom. Hank just made
Hank bomb
just made a call to the Chargers GM. Say, hey, let's get this done right now.
He texted me.
Free agency and the draft haven't even started yet.
Yeah.
Done all these fireworks. Draft would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to do the draft preview. I got to come back.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks would be
definitely. All right.
Cool.
I think we should end up there. Thanks so much for listening, guys. What an episode.
Yeah, what
a doozy of an episode. All right. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. We got spring break coming up, so maybe a few weeks from now. Maybe next week. We'll see. Thanks, guys.
Good one to end on.
Honored to be here.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into this edition of Courtside. We're hoping to be back next week. It might be 3 weeks, maybe 2. I don't know. We have spring break. We got things going on. But what a doozy of an episode today. Please subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave a like or a comment. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.